It sickens me that the Bush administration and our government representatives exploit 9/11 at every turn as the reason for the war on terror, when we know that the real criminals have not been held to account for the murder of thousands of American citizens, and that the real criminals are still in the halls of government driving a policy of never-ending war. Even the patsies blamed by government for the hijacking of those airliners used in the attacks of September 11, 2001, Al-Qaeda, and namely Osama bin Laden, have also not been held to account. In fact, it was July 3rd of 2006 that the top CIA group tasked with the capture of Osama bin Laden was disbanded, even after the president promised to capture him, dead or alive. Let's honor those Americans which died on this fateful day, 7 years ago, by waking up the American people to the truth and its consequences for the war on terror. If those blamed by government for the terrorist attacks of September 11th are not guilty of the crimes alleged, then who are the real criminals? This is the question that must be answered at all costs, especially when our nation is currently fighting wars on several fronts based on the incidents of that day. We know now that 7 of the 19 hijackers blamed for the attacks by the FBI and CIA are still alive and walking free, having never been questioned in an American criminal court by an American judge. Let's lay the ghosts to rest and give those who lost their lives on that tragic day justice for the real crimes committed, namely the controlled demolitions of World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7, and not to mention the criminal stand-down of the American military by the Vice President Dick Cheney, President George W. Bush, and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. God bless all of the families and individuals that lost loved ones or were touched by the grief, tragedy, sorrow of carrying and recalling the painful memories associated to those events. Though I did not lose personally anybody that I knew myself, I share in your sorrow and I feel your pain. I have cried with you. As an American, I am empathic to your need for justice. I just question what that justice should be and who it should be focused upon. As citizens, we are called to protect our nation from threats both foreign and domestic.
In this talk, I have focused on anomalies in the behavior, especially on 9/11, of Richard Cheney. He, along with Donald Rumsfeld and others, should testify under oath about 1, the June 1st JCS order ordering highest level approvals for intercepts of off-course planes. 2, the contested time of Cheney's arrival in the presidential bunker. 3, Cheney's orders with respect to a plane approaching Washington, and did this occur around 9:27 a.m., as testified to by Mineta, or 10:15 a.m., as per the 9/11 report? 4, Cheney's call or calls with Rumsfeld and the President before or about 10 a.m., and did they discuss so-called continuity of government, COG? I always call it change of government. How you can call what has been happening continuity of government, it's been the most radical change in the legal structure of this country that we have ever seen since the Alien Sedition Act of 1798. And by the way, in an article that I wrote, I'm departing from my text here, but it's so amazing. Homeland Security instituted, starting in September 2001, a 10-year program to build massive detention centers. And in their statement about the program, which has since been taken down from their web after I reported it, it said it was implementing an idea in the Alien Sedition Act of 1798. I thought that in history it had moved away from that sort of thing. There are two other things which I think Cheney should be asked about. Is it true, as said in one authoritative book, that Cheney overruled plans to send enough U.S. forces to surround Tora Bora in Afghanistan, and thereby we would have captured Osama bin Laden? Or did he possibly prefer that Osama bin Laden escape so that he could still be around to appear from time to time on TV? And 6, the grotesque order of Bremer to disband the Iraqi army and much of the Iraqi police in the summer of 2003. This overruled a national security order, and the book Fiasco says that Bremer was told to do it by Vice President Cheney. Did Cheney want Iraq to become a quagmire where our U.S. troops would be bogged down forever? The story that the report presented was embarrassing enough, of a multi-billion defense system that broke down on 9/11 and completely failed to perform its allotted function. But the report's systematic and repeated distortions lead one to suspect that some even more embarrassing truth is being concealed, and that this truth has to do with the orders given on that day by the Vice President. I believe that COG may be the answer to the mystery question about Cheney's actions at a time when he was talking to the President and Rumsfeld. If so, the three men were certainly not acting on their own. Rather, they would have been key figures in a highly classified secret agenda that must have involved other people. The question to be explored is whether that agenda involved revising the U.S. constitutional balance of powers, and whether Cheney on 9/11 was primarily occupied in exploiting the attacks as a means to implement an agenda of constitutional revision which he already had in place. The 9/11 Commission decided that its supporting evidence and records should be withheld from public view until January 2nd, 2009, a date which would obviously ensure the President and the Vice President from possible impeachment. But many would concede that since 9/11, and as a result of 9/11, the American nation has drifted towards a constitutional crisis requiring a change of policy direction. The issues posed by what happened on 9/11 are very relevant to this crisis and too significant to be postponed until 2009. As it did belatedly in the case of the John F. Kennedy assassination, Congress should initiate a procedure for these records to be reviewed and released expeditiously. Records that should be released would include all of the phone logs from the White House on 9/11 to determine as a matter of priority the precise time and circumstances of Cheney's orders on that day. They would also include materials such as COG files and the videotape of the White House teleconference that the Commission apparently never requested. The public also needs to establish why other records requested by the Commission did not initially reach them. And then I believe it would be appropriate for a venue to be established in which the Vice President would testify for the first time about 9/11 under oath. Thank you very much.